They didn't give us superpowers when we became snipers. They just gave us longer rifles and more time alone with our thoughts. I was a sniper attached to an infantry battalion in the 2nd Corps, 1970, Marine, 2-man team. Me on the rifle, my spotter, Fields on the glass and the radio. We weren't out there to rack up numbers. Officially, we were out there for precision fires and battlefield shaping. Unofficially, we were there to make people nervous about showing their heads. The day that stuck with me started in a briefing tent that smelled like sweat and damp canvas. The battalionist too pointed at a map, finger tapping a little bend in a river and a cluster of lines. Suspected NVA platoon-size element using this wood line as a staging area, he said. They've been probing our wire at night. We want eyes on in daylight, and a couple of well-placed rounds if you see leaders or heavy weapons. He glanced at me and Fields. You're not there to start a firefight. You're there to make 1 or 2 very specific people disappear. Copy, Fields said. When do we step off? 0 dark, stupid, I muttered. We moved before sunrise, just the 2 of us, heads low, rifles wrapped in burlap and tape, faces painted up. We peeled off from a line company patrol, a few clicks out, and slid into trees they weren't going to touch. Once we were alone, the jungle got louder. Birds, bugs, the occasional monkey raising hell. The kind of noise that makes you feel hidden and exposed at the same time. Nice day to go piss someone off, Fields said quietly. That's all of them, I said. We picked our way along a low ridge overlooking the bend the S2 had marked. The river down there curled like a lazy snake, muddy and slow, with a strip of trees along each bank. Beyond that, scrub, then thicker jungle. We found our spot just short of mid-morning. It was a small fold in the ground under a fallen tree, with roots and brush giving us natural cover. From there, through a narrow tunnel of leaves, I could see a slice of the riverbank about 150 meters away. We settled in. Rifle, Fields whispered. I unwrapped the M40 and laid it on my pack, checked the bolt, the scope, the dope I had scribbled on tape along the stock. 7.62 in the mag, 1 in the chamber. Safety on. I adjusted the sling until the rifle felt like part of my chest. Fields sat up beside me with the spotting scope, elbows dug in, one eye closed, the other on the world. Wind's lazy, he said after a bit, watching the tops of the trees. Maybe 1-2 miles an hour right to left. Call it a half minute at 200. In English, I said. Aim a hair to the right if they're across the river, he said. You're welcome. Then we waited. Sniper time is not patrol time. Patrol time is measured in steps and terrain features. Sniper time is counted in heartbeats and bugs crawling on your neck. The sun climbed. The sweat came. Ants discovered my arm and held a small parade. I ignored them. Every time you swat, you move. Every time you move, you risk being seen. About an hour in, we saw the first sign we hadn't come out here for nothing. A couple of figures moved through the trees on the far bank, not quite showing themselves. Uniforms darker than the locals wore, weapons slung. They made a few gestures, then disappeared back into the green. Movement at 1 o'clock, Fields murmured. Range, estimate 140. They're checking the bank. Too sloppy for officers? I asked. Too careful for idiots, he said. Let's see who they bring. We watched. Over the next hour, more men filtered in. Some carrying ammo boxes, some just weapons. They stayed under cover, barely stepping out of the tree line. Twice, a guy stepped down to the water's edge to fill canteens, then scrambled back up. Nobody stood still long enough to be worth a round. See that log? Fields whispered at one point, indicating a fallen tree near the bank. If anyone heavy sets up behind that, that's your first love letter. Noted, I said. Midday heat rolled in. The light went harsh. Shadows under the trees got deeper. Then the pattern changed. From the right, 3 men came into view together. 2 looked like regular riflemen. The third walked different, straighter, gear neater, a map case slung at his side. "Got your man," Field said immediately. "Center, slightly taller map case. Call him Papa 1. Watch how the others look at him." Papa 1 stopped in the partial shade, pointed out toward the far side of the river, said something to the other 2. They listened. When he finished, they nodded and moved off fast. He stayed, hands on his hips for a second, looking at the water like he hated it. "Range," I murmured. 142 meters, Field said. "Wind still right to left, maybe a touch stronger. Hold just off his right ear if you aim for the head, or right armpit if you go for center mass." "Head," I said. "Less moving parts behind him. Your party," he said. "I'll count you in." Papa 1 turned slightly side on, presenting his profile. He was talking to someone just inside the tree line, back turned partly toward us. "Wait for him to stop," Field said. "You don't chase. Let it come to you." Papa 1 paused, one hand resting on the map case, weight on his back foot. "Ready," I said. "Send it," Fields whispered. The world narrowed down to the scope. Crosshairs on his temple, a sliver off for wind. Breath in, let half out, hold. Trigger squeeze straight back. No jerk, no hurry. The rifle bucked into my shoulder. The suppressed crack was still loud in my own head, but small compared to every other weapon I had heard. A half-second later, through the scope, I saw Papa 1 stumble like someone had flicked his switch. He went down face first, map case swinging. The man he'd been talking to flinched, looked around wildly, then dove into the brush. "Hit," Field said, voice flat. "Good one." He's not getting up from that. The bank exploded in motion. Men dove for cover, hugging trees, scrambling behind logs and mounds. A few sprayed wild bursts in our general direction, reflexive, blind. Rounds snapped into the dirt and foliage well short of us. "Stay low," Fields murmured. "Don't get greedy." We watched the chaos. One guy crawled toward Papa 1, dragging him by the collar, trying to pull him back into the trees. He caught a round from somewhere else, friendly fire or one of ours earlier. I couldn't tell, and dropped beside him. "Sooner or later, they'll guess the general direction," Field said. "We make them dance a bit and then we back out." As if on cue, someone down there had a better idea. A pair of NVA worked their way to a position slightly downstream, using the trees. One carried what looked like a long, ugly rifle, maybe a Dragunov, maybe just a scoped SKS. He lay down, the other spotting. "Sniper," Field said quietly. "Call him Tango 1. 2 o'clock, range maybe 160. He's hunting." We stayed behind our little wall of brush and roots. I slowly slid the rifle a few inches, careful not to silhouette myself. "You got him?" I asked. "Yeah," Field said. "He's scanning too high, over our heads. He thinks we're on the opposite bank or farther back." "Want him?" I asked. He exhaled. "One more and we're ghosts." We waited for Tango 1 to settle. He did. Finally, profile showing between 2 trunks, cheek on the stalk. "Wind same," Field said. "Little more range. Hold a hair more right. When he stops moving." He did. I did. Second shot. The recoil felt identical. Through the scope, I saw Tango 1 jerk, arch, and roll sideways, rifle tumbling away. His spotter panicked, fired off a wild burst, then dragged himself into deeper cover. "That's it," Field said. "We got our money's worth. Time to go before they decide to rake the whole ridge." We slid back from the hide, inch by inch, never standing up into the skyline. Once we were 10-15 meters back, the jungle swallowed the riverbank. We moved in a slow crouch, then finally to a low walk, circling away from the area. Behind us, sporadic fire still snapped at shadows. A mile later, we linked back up with the line company. They'd heard some of the shooting. "You two start that party?" one of the squad leaders asked. "We just sent invitations," Field said. They did the rest. That night, back at the firebase, the intel guys pored over what we'd seen and what we thought we'd done. They liked the idea of a probable officer and a counter-sniper taken out. "Good work," someone said, like it was a test we'd passed. Later, lying in my hoach, rifle propped in the corner, I stared at the dark and thought about the look on Papa One's face in that fraction of a second before he fell. People always ask snipers the same question. What's it like to pull the trigger? They expect something dramatic. Fear, thrill, guilt, whatever. Most of the time, it's just quiet. You measure distance and wind. You time your breath. You put the crosshairs where they need to be. For a moment, the whole war fits in the tiny circle of glass in front of your eye. Then there's a kick, and someone you'll never speak to drops, and the world goes loud again. The movies make it about the shot. For me, it was everything after packing the rifle, slipping away, listening to the jungle swallow the sound, and knowing that down there, some sergeant was counting heads, and realizing the one guy who told everyone where to go wasn't getting up. We were never ghosts, no matter what people said. We were just two tired men behind a scope, trying to make one bad day for them mean one less bad day for our guys.